Okay, there we go. Hello. So, I muted myself again because apparently I just can't stop doing that. I just keep coming in and muting myself like crazy because apparently I don't want these streams to do well. I want them to be weird. I want them to have tech problems. So that's apparently how this goes. Yeah. Wow, that that was an episode. That was an episode of Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, I suppose. Lots of whew, Manu, that was a little crazy, wasn't it? Oh boy.
Yeah, that I'm a little hot and bothered, or hot D and bothered, I guess would be the operant term here. That was a very sexy episode of television. Weird, sexy at times, but
Weird. Real
uh,
weird.
we de- we definitely had a lot of sex to talk about. I think at one point in my notes, I just have capital letters sex. It's like that. That's because that's literally all that's on screen for a good like 10-minute stretch.
It felt like about half the episode. But yeah, hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the episode 4, uh, King of the Narrow Sea. I think that's what it was called on Wikipedia. I am, of course, your host, Joe Magician, and joining me this time is the wonderful, the fabulous, the Manu of many podcasts, the Manucular Bomb himself. How you doing, Manu? Tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh, hey, thanks, Matt. My name's Manu, also known as Manuclear Bomb. I am one half of the Notacast podcast now, alongside poor Quentin, my friend Emmett, and I'm also doing a Lord of the Rings podcast called My Brother, My Captain, My Podcast with my friend Emily. In both of those places, I am covering the current airing fantasy TV series in both of those realms. We're covering House of the Dragon over at Notacast, as well as the Rings of Power over at My Brother, My Captain, My Podcast. So you can check me out there.
Because you're an absolute maniac and you're trying to cover the two biggest shows in the world at the same time. What? What are you doing?
Not just that, but I'm trying to stoke the fires of toxic fandom against each other. I'm like trying to
Oh,
Palpatine this shit and trying to get the most unhinged A Song of Ice and Fire fans fighting the most unhinged Lord of the Rings fans, which my co-host Emily might be leading the vanguard of unhinged Lord of the Rings fans. So it's quite fun, but it is a little bit intense right now. We're basically these episodes drop and we start recording, and then I get like 2 days to be normal again, and then it just repeats.
yeah, it's just kind of a non-stop sprint. And so it's your fault that I keep seeing all these tweets about like people fighting about Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. It's actually just you. It's Manu.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God damn
You've
it.
seen the Phantom Menace. I got the Clone War, or I got the Clone Army on one side. I got the Gungans or the Separatists.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
forget. Whatever. However it goes, I'm just wielding them against each other, and then somehow I come out on top because you listen to my podcast
Force
or something
lightning,
for
something, something.
it.
Kill Mace
Yes.
Windu.
Yes.
It's all good. Also, thank you for the super chat from Mona Radu, £20. By by the effing hands off Sir Crispin. This was the best so far. Yeah, Crispin got in there. He really got all up in the House of the Dragon, I guess is one way of saying it. Um
Oh, that's what we're calling it
I
now.
I I don't know. That was actually kind of a funny part of the episode that Viserys kept saying like, "What did they do?" And Otto's like, "But sir, my delicate heart, I can't possibly say like what they actually did." He's like, "Look at these tapestries, dude. Okay, your daughter's right there. We just got done having sex. What are you talking about? What are we doing here?"
Yeah, you have your post-coital daughter, and you've sold her to him basically in the past. So now you're being a little unforthcoming about what may have happened between Daemon and Rhaenyra. Come on, dude, we can see past the lies.
I was just waiting for him to go like literally to put his hand on his heart and go, my king, I could never."
He needs a monocle that just pops out and falls into his drink when he's talking about it.
I also loved that his whole like little breath before he went, and he's like, "Okay, this is great, sad face. Gotta go in there. This is bad news. This is not great for me. This is terrible. I have to make sure I deliver this news like a human would, and not as I am Otto Hightower, a slime."
Yeah, not just like I casually mentioned you should marry my 2-year-old grandson at the hunt last week. I'm going to try this with a little more panache, and maybe when the king might be in a slightly more receptive mood than he was when he was in his cups last week.
Everybody was in their cups this episode. Like, I think that was like Was there a character who didn't get drunk this time? I think every major character was throwing one back.
And rightly so. I mean, there was a lot going on. I think Kristen Cole had to endure the entire episode sober.
Oh,
So,
that
although
poor
he might have
guy.
had the best episode, so
Oh man,
um,
yeah, Crispin. He. There's a lot of people that fucked up this episode. I think Crispin hit the top of that one.
it's funny because going back a couple months during the Hot D hype train, I decided it's like, you know what? I'm just going to become a Kristen Cole fan. I was a Jamie Lannister fan
Sure.
before. This should be fine. I know he's a shit in Fire and Blood, so I was kind of doing it as a larf. But right now, he's, not so bad, and he's definitely winning in certain ways. um, I mean, I think his shit headery is to come, but so far it feels like, true passion right now and not anything else going on behind those dreamy eyes of his.
his, his dreamy eyes and his long locks of hair.
Beautiful hair, beautiful
Oh
hair.
my goodness. So I think we should start at the beginning of the episode. Let's go back here and let's talk about. So the inciting thing is that Daemon's returning to court, and well, actually, no. Let's go even further. Let's go back to Rhaenyra looking super bored on her tour of all the dudes. I'm gonna call it the tour of dudes. I think that's the right way of saying it.
Yeah.
Like I have kind of imagined what these courting procedures look like with like the royalty and stuff like that. I did not imagine it to be a literal line of people one after another, like they were waiting for their orders at Panera or something.
Yeah, it was like Comic-Con or something where you have the fan questions and they all
Oh,
line up
yeah,
at
the
the
mic.
mic. It's like I'll ask my question, then I'll, sit down and listen to the answer kind of thing. And at least Rhaenyra was trying to have a little bit of fun with it, mostly by just making fun of her suitors, which, fair enough. None of this, the old guy who's presenting himself,
I didn't even
just
catch who
not great
that was.
options there. I think she's really overlooking the little kid though. He ended up
Ooh.
gutting that man. Like, so he knows what he's doing. Good representation for House Blackwood. We love
Oh
to see
yeah.
that.
We love to see a little bloody Ben Blackwood. I think that was I thought that was really good fan service, like for me in particular. I went right on Twitter and I found Chloe and she freaked out too. It's like, oh my god, that's bloody Ben. That's Ben Jacot Blackwood. That's the little kid. But it also worked in a real way of setting up as a character and also showing how Rhaenyra kind of isn't taking any of this seriously, which like for good reason, it's fairly ridiculous. But yeah, as you said, like Ben walked up there, he said his piece among a whole bunch of line of other dudes, people who have way more going for them. He shot his shot, and then when somebody tried to bully him, actually, Chloe said this was a bracken. Ben turned around, drew his sword, and then gutted the guy. He's like 12. That's insane. Bloody Ben earning his name in this episode. That was intense.
Yeah, and probably forwarding the Blackwood Bracken feud for
Oh
another
yeah.
100 years or so, right then and there. And then it's also, I think we're probably going to return to Storm's End at some point, and maybe even see some climactic moments in this very room. So kind of, or around it, perhaps a feud that starts here and spills outside. But I kind of like how this scene very effectively sets up maybe some characters we'll see in later seasons, but also a location we'll be probably revisiting before this season's out.
Just be in the chat saying yes, it was a bracken. Thank you guys. Also, make sure you guys slam that like button. We'll go silly. I will go silly hats if we get to 100 likes. Manu though is wearing a very silly shirt. He is an ass waffle today. Gotta love it. Showing off pride, showing pride for my channel, which may be dead at this point because of HBO,
no.
but we'll figure that one out. One thing that I thought was actually missing from that was I was really hoping we were going to see Boros Baratheon. We saw Boromund, his father. I wanted to see the son because I thought it would have been really interesting if maybe they cut it or maybe it just never was filmed, but Boros and Rhaenyra end up having big problems with each other. And I felt like this probably would have been the perfect time for that to show up, especially since they made the whole effort to go down and make a set for Storm's End. They bring in Bormund. Like, obviously he's upset with Rhaenyra. He keeps going like, hey, quit being a dick. You're not being nice to these guys. Like, take this seriously. But that's not really what goes on between her and Boros. And I thought it would have been just like with Bloody Ben here, would have been a good way to slip in that conflict early.
Yeah, no, I liked what they did in the first episode when they had Rhaenyra announced as heir, and then the Baratheon was a little like non-committal with his
Mm,
reciting of the vows and Rhaenyra. So I felt like they were kind of seed, House Baratheon as like a house to watch for in this upcoming conflict. So I too kind of expected to see. I mean, it's the perfect setting for it, and obviously he would probably have been in that line or at some point or another.
mm,
So, or what's it called? His father would have set aside some special time while Rhaenyra was hosted in the castle. Is like, why don't you take a walk in our Godswood, or have lunch
sure.
together and go hawking or falconing or something like that.
Go up and see
So
Blackwater or the Break Ship Bay and all that other good stuff.
exactly
It's like
right.
it was a. I'm guessing it was cut for time. We learned over the last week that a lot of stuff has been cut for time.
Mhm, mhm.
So I understand. And as a Blackwood like massive fan and super excited to see Bloody Ben, ecstatic we got to see that. But it also would have been good to throw in Boros there. But I think it also worked as a scene for just showing how Rhaenyra is super checked out in this. And even though her and Viserys had this big conversation, like go out and find somebody you really care about, and go through the courting process and your life is in your hands, it doesn't seem like it's really sunk in. I think there was a lot of characters you expected to have a lot of growth from the previous ones, and actually that's something they brought up in the after the episode, where it's like none of these people are changing. Like all these moments are momentary.
Yeah, no, it really feels like that. I mean, the only thing that really felt like a change is that Kristen and Rhaenyra are just a little bit closer following their little escapade last week.
Hmm.
But yeah, otherwise, I mean, I think Rhaenyra halts her, whatever you want to call this, like proposal progress or whatever.
Yeah.
What's it called? 90-day fiance, whatever she's doing. But
Speed dating.
she ends it like 2 months early. I think they talked about going to Bitterbridge or some other
Hmm.
castle right after they were supposed to leave Storm's End instead of returning to King's Landing. So she's not only just completely checked out with what she's doing, but then she's like, I'm not even going to do the assignment, and just decides to go, play hooky.
And I think that was something that I think that they did intentionally, because I think in last episode they put a lot of work into making you really like Rhaenyra and show her that she's like the true heir, she's the one with like the white heart and all this stuff, and how she's standing up for herself. And then you go to this one and it's just like, all right, well, kind of showing us the other side of that, where like she's not really taking Viserys at his word. Although to be fair, not a lot of reasons to in her life to believe that her father's momentary change of heart is going to be permanent.
Yeah, yeah. It is a very complicating episode for Rhaenyra. I
Hmm.
feel like just maybe the best way to phrase it, or at least how I would view it, is just she makes mistakes.
Sure.
I don't think she's necessarily like up to something or like planning some big secret thing here. I just think she's a young woman and she's
Yeah.
making mistakes within because as a young woman, something that's really prominent through this episode, especially with how she's juxtaposed against Alicent, is they don't really have a lot of choices in what they do.
No.
Right now, even having a choice of suitor is like a great liberty most ladies, high ladies especially, aren't afforded. But we're seeing what limited choices they have within the confines of this kind of patriarchy. But even then, with limited choices, that doesn't mean they don't make mistakes. And I don't think we're supposed to view anything Rhaenyra does as like morally dubious. It's just,
Mm.
she's just kind of young. And she probably made some big mistakes here in this
Yeah.
episode. But that's also why, like, when she's lying a little bit later, and I don't mean to get too far ahead of the episode, but it's
Yeah.
like we can kind of get behind that. It's
Sure.
kind of a small lie, and it's saving face, and it's what reputation, like Viserys talks about reputation being so important. It's how they project power. It's the shadow on the wall, and as long as they can maintain that shadow, what the actual shadow casting object is can be played with, I guess.
It also is kind of a problem that the realm is hinging on the decisions of a 18-year-old girl. 18-year-olds
Yeah.
in general should not be making large-scale decisions for a huge society, and that her decision about who she wants to marry will literally change the course of history is beyond unfair. And I think that's also part of what Rhaenyra is kind of reacting against. It's like, man, I just can I just be like a normal person? Can I just like not be a princess? Can I choose for love instead of like going through this line of dudes to pick the least worst one? And you could see that Viserys and Alicent really put a lot of effort into it. Clear, as you said, there was another 2 months to go, but even though she's been given a lot more than anybody else would expect, it's still, it's still unfair to her that all this is on her.
Yeah, I can't really blame her. And part of the problem is also just the other confusion, and half the realm still thinking Aegon might end up being the heir in the long run,
Mm,
anyways. That's why Daemon takes her down to that play and shows her, these are what people are saying, and she just has a lot to deal with. And I think another thing that really stood out is Allison remains pretty steadfastly Rhaenyra's
sure.
friend through all this, even though she's clearly planning some of this with Viserys in terms of who
Mm,
the suitors might be or where her progress might take her. She absolutely it's a really good move of her to go to Rhaenyra when the accusations come up. Like, that is a super bro move, on
mm,
your part. It's like, I'm going to tell you about this before you hear about it from anyone else and give you a chance to explain yourself. Like, all through the episode and all through the first 4 episodes, Allison's been steadfastly loyal to Rhaenyra for the most part, or has been loyal. I don't think there's
mm.
really anything that makes me think she isn't. So it is, you can see that kind of personal frustration also showing up in Alicent as well, because she's like, Rhaenyra, you have a choice that I never really
Yeah.
did. And here she is having miserable sex with her,
Oh God, that was.
with Rhaenyra's father, especially when other people are having what seems to be much more enjoyable sex in this episode. Alicent sex
Alicent
seems a
was
lot.
literally pretending she was somewhere else. She was like thinking about a book or something like that. Like, I am not here. I have checked out mentally from what's happening on top of me.
That's the Jamie Lannister method for coping with trauma. It's just go inside or go away or whatever it is he says.
Oh boy. Uh, and then on her way back to King's Landing, this was the timing was a little curious to me. So Daemon makes his way back from the Stepstones as King of the Narrow Sea. He's flying on Caraxes. He goes over the ships that Rhaenyra and Crispin are on. I'm gonna call him Crispin. His name is Crispin. He's Crispin Cole.
That's fine with me.
And Daemon like swoops down, goes over it, and then goes up into the castle. So I don't think he knew she was gonna be there. Um,
Unless that ship or sail gives it away. But I don't know. It seemed like they heard him coming from very far off, and then he just dove out of the cloud. So I
mhm.
think he was just planning on buzzing the tower or buzzing the ship, whatever it's called, regardless, because he likes to make an entrance.
Oh, does he
Uh,
ever?
and he makes a pretty big one. Literally, the entire court of King's Landing's like, oh, we got to run to the main throne room to see
Oh
what
my
the
God,
hell's
it's
going to happen.
Daemon!
It's a what's it called? It's like a celebrity sighting in a small town, and just everyone swarms.
Something interesting is happening. It's the Rogue Prince. He's back. But I also think that goes to kind of his motivations in this episode, which Rhaenyra calls him out on as soon as they get a chance to talk together underneath the weirwood. That I don't think Daemon had a plan for what he was doing coming back to King's Landing. I think he was just there to absolutely just cause chaos and kind of piss off Viserys however he could. Because I don't think what he does with Rhaenyra was in the plan. He was just like, this is now the plan.
Yeah, no, I mean, you wouldn't come and present yourself to your brother, the king, with a crown on your head unless you had some little bit of a desire to just kind of, piss him off a little bit, or just kind of like poke him with the sharp end of your sword.
Yeah.
Just kind of be like, yeah, yeah, look what I did. Haha. Everyone's calling me a hero. They named me king. I didn't
Who?
inherit
Who
it at a
names him
Greek
king?
council. Yeah, I was waiting for Viserys to say, who is they?
Corlys? Like the crabs? The crabs give you this crown or something?
Oh, and it's so good. And he talks about how it's the crabs and like the 2,000 men he nailed to posts that are keeping watch over the stepstones now. I'm like, that might be a war crime, but sure, we'll pretend that's great. But no, I think it's a great display by Matt Smith, just being like this arrogant asshole, but also knowing just when to stop short or just when to pull it back and seem like he's somewhat grateful or somewhat
Hmm.
happy to see his brother.
I think it's quite clear that he's continuing his his streak of knowing exactly how to piss off Viserys. Just like with his letter from Dragonstone, he knows exactly how to press his brother's buttons. Walking with a crown, with Dark Sister, also holding Crab Feeder's hammer. Nobody walks in front of the king with a sword. Like, that's not a thing. Daemon's walking in with 2 weapons, wearing a crown, and saunters up like a celebrity. And Rhaenyra, very clever, like as I said, she very clearly recognizes that everything about what he's doing is not genuine. That he is just trying to fuck with Viserys, and does it. And I thought the thing that was kind of interesting is that Otto is doing that weird like circle motion around the side, and he's like, "What are you doing, Daemon? What's going on here?" Like, he's aware of it. Rhaenyra is aware of it, but Viserys is kind of like confused. He's like, "Is this genuine or not?" It's like, "Do you know your brother?"
Oh no, it was a really well put together scene. I like how Harold Westerling pulled out his sword and Daemon just kept walking into it. That was a really great shot. Another shot I picked up is there was a shot of like Daemon walking down the aisle or whatever, and he was center frame, but you could see behind rows of people was Rhaenyra kind of running parallel to him because she was kind of sneaking her way up to the front. She had a very Arya-like presence in that throne.
Very much
kind
so.
of underfoot and ducking in between people and trying. You heard what I said.
We're getting there.
But yeah, so we saw her just kind of like not being paid attention to, which also might be something to keep note of if you're like the princess and like you're able to just kind of like duck in and out of people without being noticed. Who knows what that means?
Also continues the thing that Rhaenyra continues to be on the outs of this situation. You'd think she would be at the foot of the throne. You think she would be right up there with Viserys, maybe wearing her royal regalia, but she's just she is wearing something nice, but she's off in the crowd, which of course comes up like we were talking about her decision to cut off her progress or her royal speed dating after 2 months really has put her in the doghouse. And I think a lot of what's going on also in this episode is Rhaenyra's feeling extremely rebellious. That she, much like Daemon, she really wants to get back at Viserys for what he's doing to her. And this seems to be kind of the part of it, that she's intrigued by this, that she likes seeing Daemon tweak Viserys' nose, that she's entertained by it. It's like another, they did this a lot in the last episode, but again, they're showing us that they have a lot in common personality-wise, and also their feelings specifically towards Viserys.
Yeah, and I think there's, as relatable as like the incestuous dragon riders get, we basically have the rebellious daughter sneaking off with the cool uncle who knows how to party and getting her your first beer the first time you smoke weed or something like that. It very much feels like, you know, something like someone that age would do, you know, sneak out after dark and go and do something that you're not allowed to do or not supposed to do or you're not old enough to do. And it can be an eye-opening experience. And for, you know, a lot of people, that ends up being like they get caught and it ends up being a big experience, or they get exposed to something and it changes their life in a certain way.
Oh yeah, does it ever?
And I was about to say here, she gets caught and it changes her life in a certain way. So she gets a double whammy.
It's like she didn't take that white heart seriously, or maybe she took it too seriously and now thinks like Daemon, that kind of thing. I also thought it was so they go into the courtyard scene, and again we see that Rhaenyra is totally on the outs. Like, Viserys doesn't even want to talk to her, tells her to go away, like literally shoos her. And it was kind of curious that what they had Daemon doing, where he was trying very hard to fit in. He never tries hard to fit in. It implicitly doesn't, but he's using really formal language. He's saying, "Thank you, princess." He's standing up straight. He's not like wandering around drinking and fucking with people. He's just like trying to be a part of the court. And I feel like that has to be a choice on Daemon's part in order to get himself back integrated so he can then fuck with Viserys even harder.
Yeah, I mean, he just looks so out of place at that little luncheon that they're having outside. Like, he's like stands like a foot taller than basically everyone on the scene, it seems like. And then he's also in his like proper clothing, standing with his arms behind his back. And we usually see him with a swagger or a weapon in hand. So
or armor.
Him standing yeah, exactly. So he's really just presenting himself like how he believes like people should present themselves if they're trying to be normal in like a high court kind of way. But he definitely looks and feels a little bit out of place. You can see that some of his like lines are a little labored in delivery, like intentionally so. Like, he's a little slow. He has to like think, it's like, oh yeah, what do normal people say when something like this happens? Oh yes, thank you.
What would a non-shithead say here? Okay, good. Yes, I'll do that.
Exactly.
Question from the chat, Curtis Franks, how much time was between this episode and the last one? I know they dropped a mention, but I was not sure what it was measuring from. I have to feel like it's probably like 3-4 months.
Yeah, I feel like they might have said 4 months at some point during this episode.
Yeah,
I would have to look, but it definitely feels like so. Allison definitely had her baby
right.
that she was pregnant with. That would be Helena, and that's I think she was swaddling her, doing something very briefly with her in this episode. But yeah, it's like enough time for people to go back and forth from a couple places, but I don't think it's been like a 2-year time jump or anything like that we saw in the previous episode.
Huh. Oh, people are saying maybe like a year because the baby looked too old. Maybe. I'm not sure on baby age identification.
Yeah.
Not one of my strong suits. Definitely has been a few months. A year would be all right. Like, I don't know what Daemon would be doing still on the Stepstones for a whole year, but who knows? He's Daemon. Maybe he's actually just like hammering pirates to post like he said he was. But I figure as soon as he could, he would come back to rub it in Viserys' face that he won without him. Um, you were talking about how Alicent and Rhaenyra, like Alicent's still standing by her, and I thought that was actually a really good scene, with the two of them sitting on the bench, and Rhaenyra has that offhanded comment about how like, oh yeah, so I can be trapped in a tower and squeeze out kids, but then she realizes she was wrong and she apologizes, and it works well with the last episode because one of the things that people brought up about Alicent was that she made that offhanded comment about how childbirth isn't that bad. And it kind of shows that they do forgive each other. There is, like, people can screw up and you don't have to exile them from your life forever. But they still are, at their core, still friends. They still like each other. And they're still willing to forgive each other for these little insensitive moments, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely got the vibe that at least Alicent and Rhaenyra talk a little bit, like they coexist now,
Mm-hmm.
have some little chats. Rhaenyra grabs Alicent's arm or hand right after that exchange, so
Mm-hmm.
they feel comfortable, doing that still. And I like that Alicent was dressed in very strong red and
Oh yeah,
black.
very
Like
Targaryen.
he is very Targaryen right now, which will obviously just accentuate when she dons perhaps a different color dress at some point. So I really like just everything that's going on with them. And Allison just remains like infinitely sympathetic. Like
Mm.
she really gets like the short end of the stick between Viserys and her dad. It kind of sucks, but she's doing her role as the society lays out exactly like to the T. And she's doing the best she can to make sure Rhaenyra is as happy as possible. That seems like an impossible task
Yeah, that's not
based on
happening.
everything we know. But I think she's trying, and she's trying for like well-intentioned reasons. I don't think there's an ulterior motive or anything going on. I think Allison just like wants Rhaenyra to be happy.
Also, she mentioned that she doesn't have any friends, too. Rhaenyra doesn't either. Both of them are very lonely at this point. We saw that in the last episode when Rhaenyra walked into the tent and literally nobody said a word to her, despite being the heir of the Iron Throne. Like, that shouldn't happen. People should be running up, giving her high fives, saying, like, here's a drink, come and sit with us, and everybody ignored her. And the same kind of thing seems to be happening with Alicent, where she has a lot of, I guess, court friends, or like the wives of powerful lords she has to get along with, but she doesn't want to. I also thought it was interesting that with that scene with the two on the bench, Rhaenyra I think she's specifically saying, "I don't want your life." When she's complaining about like the duty and the marrying somebody she doesn't want and all that stuff, she's literally talking about Alicent's life, and it's the two of them are sort of like kind of crossing in that way, where Alicent wants the freedom that Rhaenyra has, but Rhaenyra also kind of wants the respect that Alicent has. You know, she wants to be in the good graces, but she also wants to be herself.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic going. Because I flagged something that Rhaenyra said, and she says she desired to be alone or be like left
Solitude,
alone.
yeah.
Yeah, solitude is what she wanted, where that's exactly the thing Allison's complaining about, because as we saw last week, most of her women companions are 20 years older than her or her handmaidens.
Right.
And then the men is basically Viserys and Otto, and anyone else she bumps into. So it is they're very much cross purposes, and I hate to
Mm,
just make it like a Sansa Arya kind of thing, but
but
you
it
can kind of
is.
see that that's kind of like the archetypes they're cut out of. But then you also see that there's a little crossover that neither wants to be completely just what they are either.
Mm,
They do have a little bit of desire to cross over, be a more complete person, or have a more fulfilling existence than the role that Westerosi high ladies are required to have.
Boy, did they give us a bleak look at Alicent's life in this episode. That was unpleasant.
Yeah, like not just the passionless sex, which it also sucks, but it's also like she was asleep in her nice big comfy bed. And like she's like, the hour is late.
Yeah.
He could have just like brought me in there to start, and then I could have slept, at least had a nice post-coital sleep, because that usually ends up being pretty solid. But no, they just like late at night bring him, and then of course we get the shot where we see all the like lesions on his body, and like, the scrapes and bruises. So he can't be great to like rub up against. It can't be pleasant. You're already trying to avoid the fingers. It just
the stumps.
Yeah. And I just love how they shot it, like the straight down camera shot, and Alicent just literally like
comatose at the camera's going like, ugh.
Yeah. And then like occasionally she realizes she has to pay attention. Like when Viserys looks at her, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm having an okay time. I'm good. You can resume."
Continue the coupling. Yes.
The coupling.
Go ahead, my lord. Keep doing that. And then the thing you were talking about was solitude. I think that's pretty close to the next scene where Rhaenyra and Daemon are talking. I guess the party's over at that point. And the food's all out, but they're still hanging out, and they talk in their High Valyrian, and Daemon basically does the dirtbag older guy at a high school thing where he's like, everything's great when you just kind of do what you want. Yeah, you do your duty, but then, you're royalty, so you could just have fun, whatever, just go with it. I'm like, oh boy, that is the kind of thing you would expect to see from somebody that is about to pressure somebody into some bad decisions.
Oh yeah, and he basically does.
Yeah.
But you also see like that cavalier attitude is not, that's very common. We've seen it in a lot of Westerosi kings and rulers, from Joffrey to Aegon the Unworthy. There is a like strand of king or strand of ruler in this kingdom where because I have a title, I can just do whatever the fuck I want.
And they're not wrong.
And Rhaenyra is also not wrong to say, well, because you're a dude, and dudes can do whatever they want. But outside of just, titles and what castles I hold, women are bound by other requirements in terms of, motherhood and child rearing that the men are not really responsible for. I mean, they have cutesy names for the bastards that men leave behind. Yeah. They really don't.
Dragon seeds.
Yeah. I would love to be a dragon seed, that sounds cool.
Well, except you have to live on Dragonstone at that point, and that doesn't sound very cool. Living on Dragonstone kind of sucks. And you can sort of see it in Rhaenyra's face that Daemon is really playing on, even though they've been apart for so many years, it's interesting that he can instantly pinpoint that what she wants is freedom, and what she wants is to make bad decisions. He's like, oh boy, I got them all rolled up ready for you. I'm the king of bad decisions. We got this in common. I know what you want.
Yeah, he basically just sneaks into her room and is like, here's a whole bag of bad decisions. Just, open it up, put some of the bad decisions on, read the scroll. It'll tell you how to make a great bad decision to get out of your room. And let's go and have a night of bad decisions.
Did you think it was kind of crazy? She didn't know there was a secret passage right behind her bed?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like at the point where you live in some ancient, incredible castle,
push on everything.
You should at least touch every wall just to know exactly.
It's like go around knocking, just hear where the hollow parts are.
Exactly.
Get a stud finder. You can find it. It's okay. I got the impression that she had no idea that it was there. There was like a look of one, like she almost fell through it, and she had no idea that there was something there. It's like Daemon never told her that. It's like, boy, how many times did he like sneak into her room or something? I don't know.
Watch her. Yeah, he could have been up to some really weird shit.
Well, he's up. That's Daemon for you.
Yeah. But I do like when she got into the secret passage that the stairwell had like a hand railing and everything. Whoever designed
also, all the torches were lit.
Yeah, it's very OSHA friendly. They clearly meet all workplace requirements. So kudos on Maegor the Cruel, or however he designed the tunnels. He made them very safe to traverse.
Listen, guys, I know I'm about to kill all of you for designing my secret passages, but everything needs handrails. Everything. Handrails, metal handrails too. That was a metal handrail. That was like something you see outside of an apartment.
It sure was.
I also thought it was interesting, like I said, the candles were all lit, so I think you have to assume Daemon lit them in order to guide her where to go, right? Because otherwise, why were those things lit?
Yeah, unless they like pay daily homage to Balerion, which again, crazy dragon people, very
Maybe.
possible. If you want to really, stretch your crackpot theories, you can say they're glass candles and they're always
Oh,
burning or something like
hello.
that. But
Love that.
I feel like if they were, we would have had a little more focus, or they look like candles, like wax as shit candles. So they either keep them always lit or Daemon lit it for her.
Probably
I
Damon.
think I kind of my like headcanon is like Damon used that passage to get into her room to drop all
Yeah,
that stuff
probably.
off, and then he just kind of lit the way on the way out. Follow the lights, something like that.
I think that is an interesting part of his character because Damon's never mentioned in Fire and Blood as being the kind of spy master type. That's Mysaria, and that he knows everywhere in King's Landing. He knows everywhere in the Red Keep. He knows all the secret passages. It's like that is a new part of his character. Also in the chat, Michelle Carter said Allison laid there like a starfish. Yes.
Oh, oh man. Well,
Oh
now
boy.
I'm just gonna think of Patrick from SpongeBob, so I don't know if that helps it, but
Oh boy.
just limbs spread out and just completely dead. It's
Yeah.
kind of like the end of what you do at the end of yoga when you go into Shavasana. You just kind of lay flat on the ground and put
Corpse
your arms
pose.
and
She corpse
yeah,
posed right
basically,
through it.
yeah. Well, I mean, that pretty much what Allison did. So,
That position's called doing your duty. Oh my god.
oh god,
Yeah, that's why it's
that's
okay.
brilliant. That's brilliant.
That's
Well
a
done.
tweet. That is a tweet that will get a lot of likes and get you in a lot of trouble. I also thought, like you mentioned the Arya connection. Absolutely, Arya all over this. They even had Rhaenyra dressing like her. The look of wonder on her face, being dragged around different places, going to see the playhouse, which I thought was a cool moment. That is part of the life of the city of King's Landing, is something that disappeared for a long point in Game of Thrones and didn't come back until we saw them all murdered. But this show, and particularly not too heavy spoilers, but lots of stuff happens in King's Landing during the upcoming seasons. It's like it rather like the instead of like Game of Thrones where it kind of spreads out into a lot of locations, King's Landing and especially the Undercity remains a huge part of it. And I really like that they kind of introduce that almost as like another character to the episode. They want to make sure that you understand that it's kind of like a crazy Mardi Gras, like a carnival of like flesh and horrors or something like that on the Undercity of it.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes like New Orleans or Bourbon Street was basically the vibe I got. Not like the whole city is like that all the time, but there's definitely like the Street of Silk or wherever the hell they are. There's always a party going on, and there should always be a party going on. I think that's a good way for a city to base itself. Is there should always be a part of the city that's partying. But no, it's fun. I even loved Rhaenyra's excitement when she was called a boy. That felt great. She was like excited. He called me boy. Like I just like Arya had a different reaction. She's like, I'm a girl, but like it's still like kind of you see how they're playing on gender with that, and that's something I know is going to rear its head with
Oh, for sure.
Rhaenyra as well. So watching Rhaenyra be delighted by her misgendering was kind of fun in the moment too.
She finally got her dream to come true. She's like, I can be like Daemon. I can just sort of do whatever. There is something they said in the after the episode where Miguel Sapochnik in particular mentioned that Daemon was doing this in a very immoral way. That what he was doing specifically here was he knew he was going to lead Rhaenyra to problems, and that he got her a drink right away. He's leading her into places she doesn't know, so she has to rely on him. Like she doesn't know her way back. She doesn't know where she is. People are jostling her, so he's kind of putting himself in a real position of power over Rhaenyra in particular. And you can see how he sort of take advantage of that as the scene progresses and they make their way into the brothel.
Yeah. I hope you don't mind, but I want to talk about like how the rumor got out a bit. The little kid who saw her, because he goes to the Red Keep and he's the one who tells Otto Hightower. But then
Mysaria.
When he's presented, she says the White Worm has news for you, and then the kid pops up, and then we cut to Daemon and Mysaria the next morning, and a little kid comes in and collects money from Mysaria, and it looked like the same little kid to
Yeah,
me
it
as the
was.
one that told them. So I'm not entirely what game is being played here. Like, is Daemon purposefully like leaking information to Otto's to like put into, machination something or another, or
Hmm. So my take on that was that Mysaria's dialogue with Daemon was she wasn't happy with him. That he had not seen her for years. This is the first time he shows up drunk, passes out in a bunch of hay and something like that. The way they probably parted was probably not too nice. She said that he was his captor. She was his captive for a while. I'm guessing that means Dragonstone. So I'm guessing that this was Mysaria getting back at Daemon and also just like plying her trade. Clearly, she has a relationship with Otto. With Daemon gone, I'm guessing that's how she made her way. That's how she bought her brothels and all that stuff from Otto's coin.
okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. It's just with as little as we know about Mysaria from Fire
Mm,
and Blood, I just kind of assume she was always in Damon's corner no matter what. But I guess we're learning that their relationship is a little different than even as was documented in Fire and Blood.
yeah.
Because we thought she sailed back to Lys and
Hmm.
lost a kid that she never ended up having. So it's just like that whole relationship is just completely unexplored, and they can basically do whatever they want. So I didn't even think about it that way, but I think you probably got the right of it.
Probably. I don't know why else she would do it. Um, I mean, the fact Damon, they said this again in the there was a lot of stuff in the after the episode where they explained all the motivations. They had a comment about Damon that a very common thing that happens to people in his life is he suckers them in with being charming and acting like he's changed, and he has not changed, and eventually it all catches up with him. So I kind of just put that onto my Saria. I'm like, this is probably the backlash from the bullshit he pulled on Dragonstone.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Um,
Um, but should we talk about like the Matrix Reloaded orgy scene that we got here in the middle of this episode?
oh man, were they
Because
doing the stomp too? Were they?
I
We're gonna
wish
rock the halls.
they needed Lawrence Fishburne just in the brothel narrating as like they did whatever they did. And I guess you told me this before the episode, but we should say they officially confirmed that Daemon and Rhaenyra did not have sex
Yeah,
in the brothel,
they got
which I
close.
thought, yeah, which I thought was pretty clear from the episode. But knowing media literacy, I'm sure there was going to be some debate if they didn't
Hmm.
say specifically what happened. So I'm glad they did, I guess.
I feel like they
But
got to third base.
yeah, they were close. I felt like Damon's pants were down.
Mm.
It felt like they were pretty close to the old In and Out, but I feel
The
sorry,
out.
sorry. Um,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
feel like they did
The Dance
literally
of the
stop
Dragons, of
short.
course.
Yeah, there you go. Of course, the dragons did not quite dance yet. Um, but so yeah, but it literally was up to that line. That's why there is even a question of it. Why I'm sure the showrunners felt they needed to say something in the after the episode, anyways. So,
wasn't
what did
quite
you think of it?
it wasn't quite like Daenerys forgot about the Iron Fleet, but it was close. They were like, "Oh, people aren't really going to understand." So I didn't catch. I sort of wonder this at the time. I had it written in our notes ahead of time. Like, what's Daemon going to do here? Is it be because he really cares about Rhaenyra? Is this like, is he really attracted to her, or is this just about Viserys? And they confirmed after the episode, it is all about Viserys. That he specifically lured her out of the castle. He specifically gave her some drinks, brought her into the brothel with the intention of trying to screw her, in order to make Viserys mad. But what they said was the reason it didn't go very far is that Daemon had his impotence problem again, and he couldn't get it up, and
Oh, okay.
that's what ended the encounter. That he felt guilty about what he was doing. So after making out with her and going to second or third base, he then just couldn't go through with it, and that's why he got angry, got drunk, and ran off and left Rhaenyra behind. It was frustration that he was like, "Ah, I can't do this. I don't really care that much about her," which was interesting
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people were reading going into this episode and definitely reading Fire and Blood that the two of them had a connection all along. But the show is saying that no, that the connection is coming out of Damon's desire to troll his brother.
Yeah. And I actually honestly read it in the moment as Damon did not want to do his brother that dirty.
Mm.
Like I it felt like he's like, this would be too far because as weird as his relationship is with Viserys, he still somewhat respects him, or at least wants his love. Like, it's a very complicated relationship. Like, he doesn't want his help. He doesn't want his brother looking down on him, but he also doesn't want to be ignored by his brother. And he would rather his brother love him than not, I think. And I thought he just kind of, like, I don't think he was like being, oh, I'm morally upstanding and I'm not going to go all the way with my 17-year-old niece or 18-year-old niece.
17, 18, yeah. Somewhere in there.
But I do think there was at some levels, like, this would be a bridge too far for me to cross my brother in this way. Because even afterwards, when Viserys is kicking him down while Daemon is laying drunk, hung over on the floor, which we've all been there.
Who hasn't? Who hasn't been drunk on the throne room?
But he, all things considered, like, still pretty respectful of his brother, I guess. Like, he's not like the way I would be a dick to someone is just not the way Daemon is a dick to people. So it's just hard for me to figure out, like, he's not being like an outward dick in the same way I would be to someone I.
It is a curious choice of revenge.
Yeah.
Certainly they do have a connection between them, and like the whole High Valyrian thing, that is the language they use with each other. It's not like there's not a connection there, but they were saying that it was not sexual, that he wasn't into Rhaenyra in the moment. He was just trying to cause chaos. But they said the opposite for Rhaenyra, that her interest in the moment was totally genuine. Although, to be fair, he also did give her a bunch of drinks, so she probably wasn't thinking super straight.
Yeah, because it did look like right when he was starting to back off, she was still looking to press forward a little bit.
Yeah, she kept going back at him, kind of
There were a couple times, yeah, she was coming for those pecks. By pecks, I mean pecks like kisses, not his chest, but also would have been worthwhile for her to go to. Good move. But yeah, so it looked like, and I mean, I think that probably feeds into what happens next, is like she got a little hot and bothered, and sometimes, you want to finish the job. You don't want to just leave it like halfway done. Which
is what happened. He got her. Yeah, he got her all hot and bothered, and she was ready to go, and then ran away. And also in the chat, Sasuke, we discussed the Blackwood. Yes, we did. Somebody in the chat said it was Samuel Blackwood, not Bloody Ben, which would be surprising to me because, although if she's 18 years old, it's 119. So I think it has to be Bloody Ben. I think, like, time wise, but who knows?
Yeah. I would think it would make more sense. Like, just, I mean, they're being a little,
there's ambiguity. They're messing with times.
And ages. And they're definitely aging characters up and down. But I think what I would prefer, and we'd have to look at the credits, would it for it to be Bloody Ben, just because then you can come back to that character in a couple seasons.
Yeah. Why would you make it Samwell when you could make it Ben?
Like, he's the kid. He's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, so I think that's what I'd prefer, but I'm sure
who knows?
The credits will let us know. We'll know by tomorrow morning, and we'll see how much of fools we are for talking about it as Bloody Ben today, but whatever.
Yeah. So after that, Rhaenyra sneaks her way back into the Red Keep. I say sneak. She apparently walked in the front gate.
Yeah.
Good one on that one. Grabs Kristen, and then this was another thing they said after the episode. But actually, before that, Manu, what was your take on what was going on between Rhaenyra and Kristen? I know the truth. What did you see from the show?
Oh, you mean from like their actual getting together?
Yeah.
Coupling, so to speak. It honestly kind of felt genuine in the moment, because I think they had some energy going back to last week.
Definitely.
I think, Kristen was reluctant, but he had plenty of time to back out. Like the way she slowly took off his,
touching his white cloak.
Yeah, like he had time to like look at his, like, am I really going to like despoil this and all that? And like he still decided to. So, and like I think he clearly kind of wanted to. Like you could tell he maybe had a little crush on her, and it's funny because Fire and Blood talked about her being infatuated with Kristen Cole. And I'm not sure if I see that. I think she sees a hot dude who guards her for sure, and someone she likes spending time with.
Yeah.
But it definitely felt like she had stronger feelings for Daemon. And then Kristen Cole just happened to be there at, right time, right spot, right time.
Okay.
But yeah, that's basically where I stand now. But because also we get. Sorry, that's my cats.
Oh, okay.
They are fighting. They are fighting on the other side of my monitors here.
Oh boy,
It happens.
they're good boys.
They are great boys. Because we get a little bit of the morning after,
Right.
where Kristen Cole has to come fetch her to like meet the king or the queen. The queen's calling her the Godswood, but she's like still in that like, come here, she's
Come
like
hither.
smiling and
Yeah.
giddy, like. So I think she's like into Kristen Cole. I don't think she's not into Kristen Cole. It just I don't think he was number one on the list. He might be now because doing the deed and then kind of being spurned by your former number one is a way to kind of shift those rankings a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think she was kind of happy about it, and it's kind of funny because that's the one thing she doesn't quite have to lie about following it happening, like because everything is so focused on.
She did
Daemon.
tell the truth. She did not fuck Daemon.
So when she has to confront her allegation, she can be honest about that, but she doesn't tell the whole truth. She might have lied. She might have said she was still a maiden to Alicent. I think so.
I'd have to go back and check it.
Yeah, so would I. But that would be an outright lie. But I think everything else was all in the context of Daemon, which was true. Although she said Daemon never touched me.
Yeah, definitely touched.
He definitely.
There was some touching there. So to reveal the truth of the episode, you are correct that Rhaenyra was all turned on from Daemon, and Kristen was the closest dick to her. So she grabbed him. They already had that connection. She already kind of liked him. They had this. He was like her only friend, and that's why she went for it. If she had her choice, she would have been boning Daemon all night long. He is definitely a bench warmer that got called up because of the circumstances, which is probably going to hurt Kristen's feelings a lot, because I'm pretty sure he lost his virginity too.
Oh wait, didn't he have an adventurous youth?
Oh, maybe. I wonder about that.
He definitely broke his vows. He definitely broke the one thing.
One thing he's supposed to do, and it's going to be that Rhaenyra. He's going to be like, "I love you," and he's going to be like, and she's going to be like, "But it was just sex," and he's going to be like, "It wasn't for me." That kind of thing. I'm pretty sure that's what they're setting up.
Those guys. He's going to be a fuckboy about it.
Oh, he's definitely a fuckboy. He is Sir Fuckboy right now.
Well, speaking about right place, right time, how about the guy who just missed? Because she walks past
Harwin.
Strong. Yeah, so
Gold Cloak.
I was waiting for that to circle back to something, or him to see her in the castle again. But no, it's interesting trying to triangulate the counts in Fire and Blood to what we see on screen, and to see how possibly what someone could witness might turn into, even if it's lies or exaggeration, into the text we got in Fire and Blood. So just Harwin possibly bumping into Rhaenyra could have been twisted. And obviously no one saw them and she was in disguise, but his presence there cannot be, overlooked.
It was interesting that they had him there. They compressed quite a lot into that whole scene, where this was, I went back and I read Fire and Blood before the episode aired, just because I was like, I know kind of what's going to happen here based on what's in the promos. So like, how close do they stick to it? And they compressed like 2 years worth of drama into one night. The way it goes in the book is that she goes to Daemon in order to get sex lessons so that she can then seduce Sir Kristen. Supposedly she does. And then after Viserys declares to Rhaenyra that she has to marry Laenor or be disinherited, she then tries to find Kristen, can't, bumps into Harwin, and then just bones his brains out. And apparently does that for the next 10 years after that. So I'm guessing that's still coming. Excuse the pun there. I'm guessing that will probably still be something in the show, because clearly they show Harwin and Rhaenyra in promos with his sons, so they are going to get together at some point. But yeah, a weird near miss, and especially after last episode when they had Harwin doing his face at her, his Dario at her, where he's very interested, and she looked back. So clearly that's not going away. But it was interesting that this is one of the ways they chose to kind of navigate that, where there was a grain of truth to all of them rather than one account being definitive.
Yeah, it's one of the harder things with talking about adapting Fire and Blood, is we don't know if that paragraph you just read was this, or it's going to be adapted over the course of like 6 episodes or something.
Sure.
So because they have that freedom to play with some of the stuff. So
Hmm.
um, it looks like, because as you described it seemed like a lot of the Kristen Cole stuff seemed to go down in a very short amount of time in terms of her approaching him and then what eventually he ends up doing that spins out as a result of it. But it seems like they're going to long play that a little bit, it seems,
Hmm.
and have like perhaps Rhaenyra and Kristen have like a secret affair for some extended time. And, I think Fire and Blood's account was that Kristen did not submit,
Never.
did not give up his
Yeah.
virtue because he is a righteous man who believes in his vows, as Fire and Blood reminds us every time he's mentioned. So it's very interesting to see that that is kind of different, but also not. It's a little different in a way that I didn't expect it to be different. Like I had my own conceptions of what really happened, and the show is even finding a way to not be what's in Fire and Blood, but also not be how I kind of thought it might go down. Because I still thought the Fire and Blood account would be kind of mostly true in terms of timing, but again, book and show could be two different things.
Well,
but,
that's what George said. They're two different things. So whatever happened in Fire and Blood does not necessarily translate back and forth. But it also, the fact that she actually is screwing Harwin, I mean not Harwin, that she's screwing Kristen. Him and Harwin do look kind of similar. Makes you wonder, are they going to make all of her sons Strongs, or are some of them going to be Coles?
I was going to say, what if they were all Coles? Like, again, we're going on an imperfect narrator with Fire and Blood. And you can see how the Strong family they're a lordly family. And it definitely serves certain narratives to rather have Rhaenyra's bastards be off another lord as opposed to the son of a steward of a low, kind of a mid-tier house in the first place. So there could be political advantages to have the bastard, be a strong bastard as opposed to a cold bastard, just because, hey, they could have been good consorts in another life or whatever. And even, what's it called? Lionel Strong in the last episode said, Sir Harwin Strong, oh yeah, he's of age and could be a match to Rhaenyra before he pushed, Laenor. So it is interesting. It could really change everything we know from Fire and Blood, to be honest.
I guess it will matter if if Kristen Cole stays her sworn shield after she gets married. I'm wondering if that's not going to happen. Because Harwin becomes her sworn shield afterwards. He doesn't join the Kingsguard. I mean, okay, spoilers, guys. I'm sorry about this. A little bit of spoilers here. Yeah, I'm wondering about that now. Are those little Cole bastards? It would be weird if it was. Why would George do a triple fake out? Or this is again, this could just be a show thing. Who knows? But it's definitely gonna. She also, at the end of it, Melos gave her the moon tea. She didn't drink it, did she?
Oh yeah, we have no idea, right? She just stares at it.
She just looks at it and the episode ends, right?
Which is something the show has done a lot, where they kind of like set you up something, but they don't actually show you the final thing. Just like they didn't show us Daemon saying "air for a day" in the brothel.
Air for the day, episode.
Yeah. There was even this episode when Viserys confronts Daemon about the accusations. He doesn't flat out say, "No, I did not have sex with her." He's just like, "Why would it bother you so much?" Or "Just let me marry her, then it won't matter what people say." Like, it's very. They leave a lot of stuff in the margins, which is really great. So now we're gonna be sitting there wondering, did she drink it? Did she not? And I guess it depends on the time jump next week. And,
sure.
It doesn't look like she's.
I feel like she has to, because I don't think that like Corlys would let Laenor marry her being obviously pregnant.
Yeah.
So
if they're throwing a royal wedding, I assume that doesn't come together right away.
No.
And she would be visibly showing in her wedding, if so.
Yeah, and everyone can do math, so they would go back and go, well, actually, they would probably assume it was Daemon's at that point, not Kristen Cole's, which is kind of funny. Let's see here. What was the next thing? So we kind of talked about the White Worm and Otto. And we joked about it beforehand, but this was everything for Otto. This was the best news he's ever heard, that Rhaenyra and Daemon were caught in a brothel coupling. But the interesting thing is I don't think the actor showed it. this was the thing they, again, after the episode, they said that Otto was basically dancing inside. He was like, yes, got her. She's off the throne. Aegon's going to be king. We're all great here. But then he just sort of goes like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. All right, sad face, let's go. I have to tell Viserys what's going on. Although they did mention also that Otto is not a machine. He is not uncaring. Viserys is his friend. He's manipulating his friend, but he does care for him. And he knew that what he's about to deliver would absolutely destroy Viserys. So on one hand, he's like dancing inside that his political machinations are about to work. But on the other side, he's like, boy, this is the worst fucking thing I could ever tell him.
Yeah, no, I think it's Rhys Ifans has just been great as Otto Hightower, because he doesn't have a lot of range, and by range I mean Otto doesn't. Like, he has like one note that he basically has, but he does a lot of subtle facial expressions or his choice of words that really conveys a lot. And we see him here just like, okay, this is my chance. This is my play. We've been kind of, easing the Aegon horse for a little while now, but he seems convinced it should be Rhaenyra. But this could be the thing, and so he has to present it as a way that it's like, this is a matter of state, it's a serious political news, and I have no personal investiture in it.
No stake.
Never mind that my daughter is just laying in the bed, like 20 feet away from you after you just, had sex with her. And she was not having a good time, as we know. So he has to just like block all that out and be like, okay, game face. I just imagine
Yeah,
it's like
right.
like the NBA team waiting in the hallway before they're called out. Just like, what time is it? Let's all get ready. Let's have a little prep speech, and then let's go and be completely all business on the basketball court. And that's basically what Otto's doing here. And as much as Viserys gets mad at him in the moment in his like bedchamber, I think that's basically as best as he could hope for, because there's no way Viserys was going to react well to this news.
Yeah, that's bad news no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot something that I think I thought you in particular would enjoy. I love the way that they were cutting between Alicent and Rhaenyra when they were both having their quote-unquote sex scenes, where it's Alicent just like staring dead-eyed at the ceiling, and Rhaenyra is feeling the passion, and she's excited about it, and she's having the time of her life, and this is all she ever wanted. It really was an Alicent and Rhaenyra episode. The two, I think, a lot is again probably made of Daemon and Kristen and then like Viserys' reaction, but I think it was really just about the two of them. That was kind of the heart of it.
Yeah, I still like Viserys and Daemon are great, but I still kind of feels like Alicent and Rhaenyra are driving the narrative. Rhaenyra a little bit more so. Alicent has had a little bit more of a passive role just because she's been wifed up and been forced to have kids, whereas Rhaenyra has had a little more agency or has had a little more freedom to like do other stuff for us to see. But I feel like they're still the heart of the show. And especially after a couple episodes where they haven't been close together, especially last episode, it was really nice to have them, kind of talk a couple times in this episode. And then we really get to see their plights, and we see their plights juxtaposed, like you said. We see like, these are two young women, and these are the sexual realities that they have to endure right now. And these are like the marriage realities they have to endure right now. And these are, the relationships with their fathers they have to endure right now. And they do a really good job of showing us those back to back. And like, because they're both in kind of different situations. Like, their relationships with their fathers are different. Their relationships with sex are different. Their relationships with motherhood are different. But we're still seeing two highborn ladies have to work through very different, but caused by the same things, like the same systems that cause their misery. But we see them reacting to it in different ways because of their different situations.
It is very well done. I thought that was an excellent way of showing the lies between them. Also, like, literally the things that Rhaenyra is running away from, like the reality that she's rebelling against, is the one that Alicent is starfishing her way through, I guess.
Yeah. Oh God.
Oh boy. I also love that Viserys' first reaction was to not believe Otto. And I love this because it was definitely a callback to the last episode where Lionel Strong, I don't know if you saw the Twitter thread I did about it, where I was talking about how sly Lionel was being here with his, like, bringing up that, like, hey, I was right about the whole Lena thing, which also means, who was wrong? Otto.
Yeah.
And that whole conversation and Viserys really thinking about it and leaning on Lionel on his way, drunkenly stumbling to the campfire like the typical dude that he is. I thought that was really important because it really, you started to see the gears start to turn in Viserys' head. It's like, you know what? Otto is using me. Like, this obviously came up with Daemon, but I think Lionel is the one that really recently put it in his head and showed him the truth of it, because he knows Daemon's a shithead and he knows he doesn't like Otto, but he doesn't know of any acrimony between Lionel Strong and Otto Hightower. But now it's kind of all coming to the forefront, and he throws it back at Otto and says, like, this is just your dream come true. You just want Aegon on the throne. You don't care about me or my family anymore. This is all about you. And Otto's like, oh, sire, I would never. No, no, no. All about you. And I thought it was really good connecting the two episodes of using Lionel's moment in order to inform what was happening here.
Yeah, no, I think it was great. And I think it makes Viserys a more compelling character, that he isn't completely oblivious to this. He picks up those cues from Lionel, and then he's able to throw those in Otto's face. And, when he's throwing them in Otto's face, he's like, you served well and you were my friend, all that stuff. But like, you clearly are just trying to get your grandson put on that Iron Throne. It's informed literally the last 3 to 4 years of every like policy decision you made, whether it's, endorsing sending Daemon off to do whatever, or whatever it is.
It's all
he
connecting.
Has had like a singular focus. He has an agenda that he wants to get one of Alicent's children put on that Iron Throne and Hightower blood ruling the kingdom. That's very important to him, and I like that Viserys. He needs a little nudging, but he doesn't need it spelled out for him, and then he's able to vocalize it well when saying this to Otto, and I thought that was great. His hand has hectored him enough, or I forget what the line is from Fire and Blood, but he talks about Otto Hightower hectoring him, and then he eventually gives, away the handship, and it actually goes to Lionel Strong, which I assume is what we're going to see next episode.
Obviously, that's what's coming up. They didn't have him give that whole speech and that conversation for nothing. They're definitely going to stick to that one. I also, it was a good screenwriting decision in order to make those two things clash, though, because Viserys is right. Otto is only out for himself. He is only out for his high towers. He's only out for Aegon, but he's misapplying it. Otto's not lying now. He's telling the truth. It's just a very self-serving truth. And Viserys using his realization about Otto's disloyalty to try and disbelieve this is one of those things that makes you go like, oh, that was a really clever choice to have this realization almost make him make the totally wrong choice. Although eventually by the end, we talked about the Moon Tea. Clearly Viserys does, after talking to Daemon, he's like, yeah, this totally actually happened. Otto wasn't lying.
Yeah, no, it's actually kind of savvy politicking by Viserys, because it allows him to almost have a narrative to get out in front of if, these allegations make it into like the people of King's Landing or the broader Seven Kingdoms. He's able to say, oh, it's because of Otto Hightower's, ambitions and his own machinations to get his grandson on the Iron Throne, that he's a big reason that fueled this fire. So who knows if it'll come to that, but it at least seeds some like, plausible deniability on Viserys' part, or like a reasonable reason why this could have gotten out there and not be true.
Also very savvy by Viserys to totally nail that the reason Otto heard about it is because he's been sending spies around Rhaenyra. He's trying to find something. He's fishing for dirt on her. And he's like, I know you're doing this. It's like, yeah, he's not a complete dumbass. He's an indecisive guy. But those are not mutually exclusive. You can be a bad, indecisive king, but also be insightful. And I think that's a good part of him. Like, I think Robert, to kind of hit, I don't know, it's kind of his discredit in Game of Thrones is he was just the buffoon. There wasn't much like slyness to him or the intelligence that you would expect from a king. And here they're putting both in. Viserys is the buffoon, but he's also very, very smart.
It's definitely a much more interesting character and story if the king is capable of making the occasional right decision every now and then, instead of just going away to hunt and fuck.
He almost made the right decision.
Yeah, or at least he's trying to make the right decision. Robert's even like, I'm not even going to be at the place where they make decisions. I'm going to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, and I think it makes, because Viserys is a very interesting egg to crack in terms of writing him for this television show, because he's such a non-entity in Fire and Blood, and George mentioned this. So we want to make him both likable, but also the shit that happens clearly has to be a result of what he
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Like, his failures have to be a direct precipitation of the Dance of the Dragon. So they're doing a really good job of, like, you can see why people would like this guy, why people would have no problem with him as their king, but then also why things would go to utter shit the minute he disappears.
Mm, very true. He's spending all of his time trying to hold together a situation that will not be held together. Um, then we get to the Weirwood tree scene. The Weirwood got a lot of play in this episode. I noted that in my review that cannot be seen on YouTube because HBO sucks, but that they're really introducing a lot of not just dragon dreaming and Valyrian magic, but they're putting a lot of old god stuff and a lot of nature, and they're doing it in very sly ways. But the Weirwood got like what 3 scenes this episode or something like that, and in particular the old god sitting there that you could see the face watching as Rhaenyra and Alicent had that conversation, and I think it was an interesting conversation, I think, because Alicent, I think, knew right away that Rhaenyra was lying. She knew it. She had it. She was like, my father is not making this up. I know you. I know you would do this. And then lets Rhaenyra talk her out of it. And like literally you see Rhaenyra walking circles around her while she's doing it. Like the I'm not sure what the word is, but for the blocking and where they're having her move, you're seeing that she sort of swing around her almost like a shark.
Yeah, no, it has the same camera movements of a Grima Wormtongue talking to
Mm.
Eowyn, which
Yeah, that's it.
but yeah, no, it's great because Alicent knows her father. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
she, she knows that Otto would not play his hand unless he had something. I think she very much knows that. She's not going to just take the first rumor that comes up from Flea Bottom about something Rhaenyra might have done and just run with it. I think he would only go if he felt like I'm pretty sure this is true, or at least close enough to the truth where it makes no difference whether they actually coupled or not, but they were both seen in a, what's it called, brothel doing
Yeah.
stuff or whatever. So
Doing
yeah, and
stuff.
I think Alicent was like very skeptical. I think she wants to trust Rhaenyra, or she wants to be Rhaenyra's friend, because again, how do you not feel lonely? You be friends with people, and how do you be friends with someone you trust them?
Right.
So you find like there's a very complicated space that Alicent's in where she wants to believe, but I think she, like you say, knows that if maybe her and Daemon didn't fuck, but she was definitely down there with
Yeah.
Rhaenyra top 2, and like what Rhaenyra did there. Well, she knows how Rhaenyra is. She knows Rhaenyra probably better than anyone else in the Seven Kingdoms. So.
Exactly. She knows what her friend is like. She knows that she has a real affection for Daemon. She knows that she likes danger. Like the dragon riding is, I mean, a little on the nose, but she does like riding dragons, and she likes the danger of it, and she likes risking herself. And like with how she walked in with the boar behind her and covered in blood, that's the kind of person she is. She is not the kind of person that would just sit in her room with Daemon back and not go on an adventure with him. Of course she would. That's who she is. And I think it was good to add a sort of kind of the human heart in conflict there, where she really wants to trust Rhaenyra, but she knows her father, like you were saying, and she has to decide which one of them is lying. And it's interesting that she comes down on the side that it's Otto. But it was kind of hinted in the last episode, because remember, Otto told her to go to Viserys and convince him to disinherit Aegon II, or I mean to disinherit Rhaenyra, and Alicent just doesn't do it. And instead, she even breaks his strategy of isolating Daemon and Corlys and convinces Viserys that he has to send the ships. So it's one of those, I think it's one of the more subtler things. Rhaenyra's rebellion against her father is very much on the surface, but I think Alicent's here is subtler, which I think kind of fits her character more.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I think it's really setting up the fraying that's going to happen between Rhaenyra and Alicent here, because now she's kind of being put in between her dad and her best friend. And she knows like they're both kind of doing their own thing, politicking and whatever makes them happy. And she she, has always been kind of up for the role that she's been given to her. She's the queen of the Seven Kingdoms right now, and
Hmm.
husband to the king. We even see her take on the duty of washing Viserys in this episode. She
Yeah.
like dismisses the handmaids, like might as well do it myself. I do it anyways, metaphorically, basically.
Yeah.
So we really see that, like, in a way, this episode both like reaffirmed the friendship that Rhaenyra and Alicent had, but I felt like it also really planted the seeds for their, kind of the feuding that'll come up over the succession and, probably the next couple
Gonna
episodes.
be a real betrayal between them because yeah, Alicent is standing by Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra is now using Alicent, which I don't think Alicent's gonna react well to. She doesn't react well to Otto doing it. She's not gonna react well to her friend doing it. Then they go to the whole. Well, do you want to talk about the throne room, or do you want to talk about the Rhaenyra and Viserys in his bedroom next? Which one do we want to go to, Manu?
So are we talking about kicking Daemon while he's on the ground,
Yeah.
or
Yes.
well, we might as well just do that.
Let's go
Just
there.
because it's so funny.
It's
Like
so good.
I love Matt Damon being just dragged in and dropped on the floor. He doesn't even try to get up, and Viserys just starts kicking him. And David just like, well, I'm just gonna stay down here. There's real no point in getting up.
I deserve this.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun, and it still does really feel like two brothers. Like, even though they're old, even though they're royals, even though they're incest dragon riders, it does really feel like they're brothers. And brothers are complicated. It's very interesting to see them navigate it. But I'm trying to remember what else happened in the scene other than what's it called? Being told that he needs to return to his woman in the Yuri.
Yeah, that one's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So he gets thrown on the floor, and then Viserys. It's weird because he does not believe Otto when he says Rhaenyra screwed around with Daemon, but he just flat out says, "Daemon, you did it, right?" He's just like, I know you. You did this, right? And Daemon's just like, you said earlier, like, why bother denying it? That kind of thing. It's also like you're saying, but they're brothers. It's sort of like there's almost like play fighting that's going on there because we've seen Daemon. We've seen what he can do with Dark Sister. He could tear Viserys apart. He's choosing not to. He's choosing to lay on the floor and let his brother kick him and pull his dagger on him because this is the reaction he wants from him. This is what that whole night was about. He wanted this.
Yes. And he needed Viserys to believe just enough of it so that he can get this. He didn't need to go all the way with Rhaenyra or anything like that. And this is kind of exactly what he wanted. Like
which is weird.
It's weird, but you can sometimes people just want to be paid attention to. And when you're the brother who was potentially passed over as heir first by the daughter, and now that even after Rhaenyra, there would be several more claimants in front of you now in the line in terms of at least Aegon, possibly Helena, and then there more to come. So like he's just being more and more being pushed to the side in terms of the line of succession. He's never going to sit on the Iron Throne. Well, unless he perhaps marries someone who's going to sit on the Iron Throne.
Hello.
And then he gets to be king, even if he's not the named heir.
King consort. He gets to be Prince Philip, I guess. Hey, it's all coming back.
Topical.
Hey, boom. I also like that he was just so bold about it, and he was just like, "Let me have Rhaenyra, and I'll marry her. No one will take her now," knowing that he did not actually go all the way with her. That he's even now lying about it. That there's some parts of his soul that won't even let him acknowledge that he keeps having this problem.
Yeah, no. What's funny, one of the things I'm glad they kind of dropped from Fire and Blood was Damon's love of virgins.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm kind of glad they did. But as far as he knows, as of this, as of his conversation with Viserys, Rhaenyra is a virgin. Because he wouldn't know that Kristen Cole and her got it on last night.
Yeah, he can't know that, so
he doesn't seem like he doesn't remember a lot of the night that happened before.
He passed out.
So as far as he tells, he gets Rhaenyra, a maiden, the queen, to be his wife. Like if Viserys consented to this arrangement, he wins. He gets literally everything he could possibly have wanted.
Well, sort of.
Well, yeah.
He doesn't actually want Rhaenyra. That's sort of the point. Even his marriage I think you have to take into account that his marriage proposal is not in good faith. That he's still doing this just to make Viserys angry. I don't know if he actually wants to marry Rhaenyra. He'd probably go through with it, but it is not, I guess, a genuine proposal. It is not. He's presenting himself as if I really am in love with my niece. That like this is a natural thing. I want her, she wants me, and that's just not the truth.
Yeah, especially when he already has a wife.
Yeah.
And he's got to know it's probably wrinkles of
No way it would
Viserys
happen. Yeah.
that he would take a second wife in the tradition of old Valyria. I feel like Viserys wouldn't look too kindly on that. Like
Especially
the
with the high
framing of
tower
that.
as his hand, it would never happen.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So again,
So
he's just fucking with him.
mhm, mhm.
Weird that it ends up coming true. Apparently, he's just so committed to his trolling bit. It's like Jeff when he used to be on Twitter. He's just
Oh
committed to the bit
gosh.
at this point.
Yes, yes. Daemon is the ultimate committed to a bit guy. He is just he came up with this bit. He didn't know where it was going, but he committed to it, and that's literally why we get the Dance of the Dragons.
I guess I am the Rogue Prince now. I will be Rogue Prince forever. Um, so I thought that was a really good scene. I thought it was well acted from Matt Smith. Apparently, he's going to stick around though, because we've seen promo shots of him on the wedding dais, but Viserys just banished him. So does he come back for the wedding? Like, does Corlys invite him or something? I'm not really sure what's going on there.
Oh, that'd be great if he was like Corlys's +1 or
Yeah.
something. I know Corlys needs to bring his wife, but she probably gets invited anyway. She's a Targaryen. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting, or whether time has passed. Maybe there's a small chance we see his Royce wife. I
Oh,
guess
yeah. Love to see
we
Rhea.
could. Yeah, so it might be interesting, and then we might not see her much longer after that.
No.
So,
Riding
but
accident. Mm-hmm.
if they do something like that, it would make sense to introduce her in a scene like this, which would be a context which would make sense for her to show up and for Daemon to even be back on court.
Yeah.
It just you think of Game of Thrones and like the royal wedding between Marjorie and Joffrey, and everything else aside, story wise, it was a chance to get all the actors into a room or into one set and really have them play off each other in ways that we knew from the books and ways that were just completely show invented. And this could be an event that basically gets all of the cast that we have into one room for a single thing, and we can see how they play off each other.
Apparently, someone's going to kill somebody.
Mm-hmm.
With a particular weapon. I think we should jump to Rhaenyra and Viserys because we've kind of covered a lot of it, but there is obviously they brought up the dagger again, and apparently Aegon wrote the prophecy. Yeah, actually, it's Rhaegar's line from House of the Undying. I think it's almost exactly it. From my blood, will be the prince that was promised. His will be the song of ice and fire, which is almost exactly what Rhaegar says in the books. But then doesn't go anywhere. They just kind of drop it again. It doesn't influence their conversation. He's like, listen, this is all about this, like prophecy. We have to save the end of the world. And Rhaenyra's like, I guess, sure.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I'm not quite sure about what they're doing with the prophecy and the magic stuff is they're not having it impact their discussions or their characters at all. Like, it's impacting Viserys in the sense that he wants to be a dreamer, but Rhaenyra apparently doesn't give a shit other than like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like the One Ring, I guess. Look at that. It kind of, but it doesn't make her want to do anything. And it just sort of seems like they dropped it in to remind the audience that this is an ongoing thing that they're going to pick up later. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm the prophecy guy, but I'm not a huge fan of what they've done. After the first episode, I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be like so integral, and this is like, is it?
Well, it's just interesting to see what they plan on doing with it, because this definitely feels like they're reminding the audience about something, like thinking about how you plan a season of television.
Right.
There has to be some kind of payoff. I just can't see what that is.
Right.
We know the dagger doesn't really get lost. I mean, maybe they lose it for a little because of all that we know. Granted, happens 170 years later.
Mm-hmm.
What actual drama, tension, or irony they can draw from this, I'm not sure. Like, we were talking about the Godswoods earlier, and I was thinking about how Rhaenyra and Daemon were talking in High Valyrian and from the Godswood. It's kind of like an ice and fire kind of thing right there. like the language of fire, language of ice, however you want to describe it. So they're very purposefully including
It's
all this stuff.
there.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's, but I just in the confines, because like it doesn't make sense for the lore for like any kind of White Walker or whites or anything of that to show up in this story. I don't even think we're gonna go that far north,
We're going to
even
see
if we get
Winterfell. That's probably it.
yeah. So unless something major changes or that dagger becomes a big like kind of MacGuffin for something that comes up, maybe that's someone gets stabbed with it at the wedding and then they have to like ship it off for forensics and it gets lost and they lose the prop. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And also the fact that, like you said, like it's like the One Ring. I feel like George wouldn't just lift, the whole writing is in fire kind of thing without wanting to put his own twist or turn on it. If it's just like, oh, the prophecy's written on there and that's that.
Neat, I guess.
Yeah, it feels like there just has to be something more, or else it just feels a
There's
little.
got, yeah. They're building towards something. I just can't quite figure out what it is because it's clearly not Viserys and Rhaenyra. That's how they introduced it, but it's going somewhere else. Like maybe at some point, like she starts believing it, or she sees something, or like a winter starts and she freaks out or something like that. I don't know what it is. It just felt kind of glaring in this scene that Viserys like brought it up to remind her of her duty to the realm, but then it didn't have any impact. It seemed like a weird inclusion.
They pivot to like father daughter conversation that it just seems like sometimes your parents will like start a lecture with a giant metaphor because like
Yeah.
you know what they say about mules in the old country, and then somehow it'll turn into a lecture about responsibility. It kind of felt like that because he had the dagger sitting in the
He was waiting,
brazier,
yeah.
like, and like she pulls it out and reads it, and then he just pivots. It's like, this is our duty to keep this prophecy alive. Oh, by the way, I heard you were in a brothel. And blah, blah, blah. Like
The two aren't really connected too much.
yeah, unless like, oh god, the dagger is some kind of like phallic metaphor or something, and he was trying to do something. Probably not worth thinking about.
Yeah, and to their conversation, I thought the most interesting part of it is that Rhaenyra basically blackmails Viserys into firing Otto. I thought that was a really good change, and I thought that was something that shows that Rhaenyra is really starting to try to influence the court. She's sitting at the small council table now. We saw her during the opening scenes when they were talking about like the sea snake. He's going to marry Lena to the son of the Prince of Bravos or whatever, and it was like she's sitting there, but she doesn't say anything. But now she's going in. She is now part of the machinations. She's using leverage she has now about agreeing to the marriage in order to get rid of her enemy, which she identifies in the scene correctly as Otto. She's like, my life will be easier if he has no influence. I'm going to make my father fire him or else. And it was like, all right, you know what? You're playing the game. All right, Rhaenyra, I see what you're up to.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. This is like the first real gamesmanship we saw from Rhaenyra. Because like last episode, she's running away and arguing with Viserys out in front of people. It's just like very politically unsavvy episode
Right.
for Rhaenyra. And then now here she's cognizant of what Otto's doing, and she's able to vocalize it in a clear enough way that it convinces her father on the spot. Like, oh yeah, Otto. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Viserys was probably thinking some of this stuff too, but Rhaenyra helped really spell it out for him and kind of push him over the edge into making the decision to let him go his hand.
And then the breakup scene. I thought it was funny that was framed so clearly as a bromance breakup. It's like, Otto, I love you, but you have to go. And then he brought up the stuff about like Otto. Was he implying that he helped kill Viserys' father? Did I hear that right?
It was.
How long's he been sitting on that one?
Yeah, it's very convenient, right? Balon the Brave was named heir, and then they had a great hunt or tourney. I forget what it was for him. And then 5 days later, he died of a burst belly, which I'm not entirely sure if I know what that is. I always thought of it as like appendicitis whenever they said it in
I don't really
Fire
know.
and Blood. But I mean, your belly can burst if someone sticks a sword through it. So I wasn't entirely sure like if it was like innuendo or whatever, but I always thought of it as like appendicitis, but something like that could also be poison or any number of things. And it does introduce the possibility that perhaps Otto Hightower killed his way into his handship, so to speak. I don't know what the implications of that are, but it is something worth noting.
I felt it was sort of Viserys just sort of like trying to give a reason, because if he really thought Otto did that, he would have him killed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he was just kind of like trying to bring up that I think he was trying to skirt the whole this is actually about Rhaenyra and what you said the other day, and he's trying to be like, oh no, this is years in the making. Although it was clever of Viserys to be able to go back in time and reevaluate Otto's entire life and be like, oh yeah, this guy is a shit. And he's totally been trying to rise to power the whole time, and he's been using me to do it. Huh. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Good thing I realized it. But yeah, I think that's all that really was. Like, really just he's the king. He can execute Otto Hightower if he feels like it, if he really thinks he had something to do with Balon's death.
Hmm. And even if he really did, I think just the relationship the crown wants to maintain with House Hightower would probably make any kind of execution or even imprisonment off the table. I think something like stripping of his title and sending him back home or whatever he does. Who I don't exactly know what he's going to do in the show, because he has every reason to stay with his daughter and grandchildren.
They showed him riding away. He gets sent out of the city.
Oh, okay.
So he's out. Go. He's back to Old Town.
We'll see what Hobart has to say about that, I guess.
He's going to be very British about it.
That's how they all
are. It really was a breakup scene, though. You could tell that really did hurt Viserys that he had to do it, and that there was real betrayal in it. But I think he also tried to throw him a few bones, like after he took away the pin, and then he said, like, the realm owes you a great debt, and so do I. And he's just like, it's like, I'm breaking up with you, but I still love you. Okay.
You'll always be an important part of my life. I don't look at these last 6 years with regret or anything. You know, it's our time. If I was Otto, I probably would have asked for some money. It's like, can I have a little severance pay or something? I'll get out of your hair, but come on, man.
Let me grab a tapestry. All right. Take it back to the high tower with me. Yeah, that one had to hurt. I also liked Otto's terrible face at his accusations, where again he was just like, oh, what? Me? Never. No, my lord, absolutely not. I would never do anything to hurt you. It was excellent.
The exact thing you said, which I did to the word, to the letter. I'm doing the exact things you were accusing me of, but no, I never did that.
Although I think the thing that really hurt Viserys more than anything was realizing that his relationship to Alicent is a setup. I think that one actually truly hurt him, to finally put that one together, that I love that he loves Alicent. I don't think Alicent loves him, or at least doesn't enjoy having sex with him. Clearly there is some affection, but not the way that he probably does. But to realize that relationship was totally manipulated, and that it was just Otto trying to make a play for his heirs, that had to hurt so bad.
Yeah, because Viserys has spoken of feeling alone and not really caring for a lot of the stuff at court anyways, and Alicent showing up and being his friend was legitimately something he seemed to enjoy. Like, he had someone to talk to, someone he could confide in, someone who wasn't Rhaenyra, who wasn't Otto, who wasn't, anyone else that he could just talk to. And now they have at least 2 children together. Who knows if this was the day that Aemon One Eye was consummated.
Oh boy,
with that sex scene, which would be appropriate. There's about as much love in Aemon One Eye as there was in that sex scene between Alicent and Viserys. So
yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, no, it is devastating. It's like one of the, I think, few things that Viserys would say is good in his life is his wife. I think he, all things considered, really likes her and gets along with her. I don't think she's super thrilled with it, but from Viserys's point of view, it's like, yeah, this is a good thing in my life. And for even that to be kind of called into question or feel a little poison now, that's got to sting for him.
I don't think that one's going to go away. I wonder if he's going to take it out on Alicent. Like, he might. If he has to start questioning what her feelings are too. That's not going to be a pleasant conversation. He's clearly a very passive-aggressive man. Like, she's going to notice, and it's not going to be kind the way he does it. Like, the same way that he blew off Rhaenyra when she tried to come up and say, like, good job on the conquest, and he's like, yeah, maybe you should go see him then. Like, that's going to hurt. That's going to isolate Alicent even more. Now that she's lost her father, too, who's been banished, and he's going to head back to to Old Town. Clearly, there's going to be animosity between her and Rhaenyra. That she knows Rhaenyra lied. Rhaenyra knows Alicent lied, but they're still trying to stick to each other. Now her husband's going to question her. She's going to be super isolated as a character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see because, like I said, we're starting to see the seeds of what will probably be their fraying.
Mm.
And I think we're probably an episode or two from it really exploding. And I think the other thing of note is that Rhaenyra assents to being Laenor
Yeah,
Valerian's
agreed to it.
wife. So she seemed willing to do that. It almost felt like a quid pro quo with "I'll do this if you
Absolutely.
get rid of Otto Hightower." And that goes back to the politicking you're saying, where she's not just saying you need to get rid of Otto, but it's like, I will do something for you if you do this for me. It's like,
She's being an
you
adult.
like
She's
to
not
see
being
it. Yeah.
commanded.
Exactly.
And I think the last thing that came up was the Melos bringing the moon tea. We kind of talked about this at the beginning. Um, that we don't see her drink it. Obviously, Rhaenyra has a bunch of bastards. She also didn't bring up that she knows that Laenor's gay yet. They haven't introduced that at all. Like, they had the guy standing next to him at the War Council, but he had no lines, and there was no obvious
Vibe.
hints there that this was happening. So yeah, there's no vibe. There was no vibe to that. So I'm guessing it will come in the next episode, and I'm curious if Rhaenyra already knows, because they've known each other since they were kids. We saw them in the box together at the tournament. So obviously she knows Laenor. I'm curious if she knows him that well, or if they've been too long apart at this point.
Yeah, no, it will definitely be interesting. They could play it, anyway for the show, because when they were younger, you might not be, fully aware or fully open with your sexuality, and it'll be interesting how the show approaches the culture. Because Game of Thrones season 5, they took a hard turn against homosexuality with some of the Faith storyline, but some of George's writing seems to indicate that it's more just like don't ask, don't tell, kind of, with a lot of
For lords, at least.
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see like what kind of reverberation Laenor's sexuality has. Who knows? Yeah, I am very interested because I think we've seen, like, going all the way back to the season previews, like trailer shots of Laenor and Rhaenyra walking alongside a beach,
looking unhappy.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting if she's going to find this out now, or if this is something she's going to kind of know going into it. Are we going to have another great wedding night scene like we had with Sansa and Tyrion or something?
Boy.
So, they have a lot of
There's
stuff.
gonna be a fight, apparently.
Yeah. So Dothraki wedding without at least 3 deaths is considered a dull affair. So we might be going Dothraki levels with this wedding.
It looked like from the next episode that Kristen is throwing a punch at somebody at the wedding, and I'm curious if it's going to be Daemon or Laenor. I think it's going to be Daemon, but you never know. He's probably going to be really protective of Rhaenyra at this point, or at least openly flirty. And I'm curious if he's going to figure out that there's something between Kristen and Rhaenyra, and that's the other bomb waiting to drop. And there was a line from Fire and Blood that I was expecting to be in this episode that wasn't. That one of the things that it's noted is that Alicent starts a rumor where she says, Sir Kristen protects Rhaenyra from everybody, but who protects Rhaenyra from Sir Kristen? That didn't get dropped. And I'm guessing it's going to be next episode that the people are going to start to notice that Rhaenyra is more than just friendly with Kristen at this point.
Yeah, I think we saw the beginning of we saw their coupling, but I don't think anyone's really seen Kristen and Rhaenyra afterwards or interact or see their, what I assume are going to be a lot of easy smiles and flirted glances and all that cute stuff we loved in high school. I think we're going to see right here. But yeah, and once Daemon seems like the kind of guy who will probably pick up on exactly what's going on right away. He just seems to know if anyone else is having a secret sexual relationship. I just feel like Daemon has like a radar for that.
Also, he can just apparently sneak into her room and just check it out, and just like open the door a little bit. I'm also wondering if that reveal will be the thing that really breaks Rhaenyra and Alicent, because if she's already suspicious about Daemon, if she gets suspicious about Kristen, asked Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra lies about that, and then she finds out it's true, I feel like that's going to be the kind of thing you don't come back from.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Alicent might be heartbroken when she finds out that like Rhaenyra did lie to her about all of this stuff. And then Rhaenyra is going to be like upset if Alicent like, makes any of that public or uses that for any kind of gains of her own
Yeah,
politically or
she's
otherwise.
savvy. She could.
So you can really see it being kind of that epicenter of what will cause the big rift.
A good setup by the show. We can already see what they're going for. Was there anything else you wanted to cover? Or I think we got it all.
I think we got it all. I just like that it was a very sexy episode.
Yeah, it was.
Just a lot of sex, a lot of consensual sex, some weird sex, but it was just very sexy. I like that the show doesn't always hold your hand. Like they don't spell out exactly what the moon tea is. They, kind of just hint at you. Master Malos gives you, just so there are no unwanted consequences.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that they're not just saying, oh, it's an abortifacient or something like that.
Yeah.
They're pretty much like they're trusting the audience. Like you've watched Game of Thrones, you kind of know this world, and you know what the main themes are: the big thrust, childbirth, and all that. We're gonna let you kind of think this through, and it's a complex show. Like I don't know how to feel about half these characters. I know I love how rich and intensely characterized they are, but how I actually feel about any of them as a human being is complicated.
Oh yeah, loving watching the drama. Like, oh boy, stay away from them at all costs. Like, these are high drama people. Like, maybe the only person that you would want to hang out with that I've seen from the main cast is probably like Alicent. She seems like a good, upstanding person. She's loyal to her friends. She's pretty much honest all the time. She's smart, and it's like it seems like this is like we're gonna see that the court is going to be the one corrupting Alicent and not the other way around.
Yeah, she deserves a good time. Like someone take her out for ice cream or something. Like who's sneaking into her room and taking her off to the Street of Silk and giving her a nice night on the town? Well, I guess we'll see who that is.
Yeah. Oh well. I think we're probably about done. So Manu, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your stuff, and we will both go to sleep.
Yeah, no, I look forward to sleep very much. But yeah, I'm Manu, also known as Manuclear Bomb. I'm one half of the Notacast podcast alongside Poor Quentin. And I also do my brother, my captain, my podcast about Lord of the Rings. And on both of those podcasts, we are covering House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power, respectively. Check out those podcasts. They both have Patreons that you'll find through them, yada, yada. And you can follow me at Manuclear Bomb on any social media that I am on.
Get ready for a lot of cats if you do.
Oh yeah,
just all the cats
only
and
cats,
Simpsons jokes. Oh my god, only cats. Oh my goodness. And the other half of your podcast, Emmett, will be coming on later this season. I think episode 9 or something like that. It's gonna be a while, but I'm gonna collect both halves of the Notacast during this season. It was obviously great having you back, Manu. You guys haven't seen him since season 8. Manu was we had a great time.
It's Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
I know. We got 2 great episodes. Totally on accident. That's how it works out. 2 for 2.
If you want to invite me back just so we can keep this streak going, I'm all for it. So.
Whatever episode it is, it clearly will be one of our favorites. That's going to be the truth of it. So if you guys were wondering why there was any uploads for the last week, I tried to post a review and HBO claimed it and they blocked it. So you can't watch it unless they agree with my dispute. So you can find it on the podcast feed, which is down in the description. If you look for the Wit and Wisdom of Joe Magician, I posted the audio version. I don't know when the video version is going to come up. And honestly, I don't know if I'm going to be able to post videos if they keep claiming my stuff. So fingers crossed that solves itself, because I have obviously a lot of stuff to make. If not, it might just be very light on on visuals if I make anything. Hopefully it resolves itself. Next week, who do I have? I wonder if I think it's Sanrixian next week.
Oh, Mal, yeah, hell yeah.
For the dragon episode. Again, not planning it. Season guests. Oh, no. Oh, wait, no. I think Mallory's 8. Okay, next week it's just me, no guests. We're gonna have a great time. Mallory's gonna come back later. She's probably gonna help me with the dragon project. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, enjoyed hanging out with us tonight, and have yourself a great night. Bye, everybody.